Hello, I am a self-taught artist and I've always wanted to make this video as an outlet to express my frustration in drawing and creating art. It is hard. I've been trying to learn how to draw for more than over a year now, and I can tell you that my progress is really slow. A little background about myself is that I'm an IT student. I was 3 years in my college and noticed that my university offers game development courses. Video games have always been my life. I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours being around video games. So with that reason, I decided to take it. And that's why I started to learn the skill of art. My initial goal with this skill was to become an illustrator or a concept artist for video games. It's always been my dream to have a career in the gaming industry. I started taking art seriously in the late 2023 and had a lot of lengthy breaks or hiatuses. Is that even a word? Well, anyway, because I was in college, 2023 was an era where educational institutions in my country were still recovering from the pandemic, and adjusting to new schedules was really hard. However, I was able to squeeze in a few practice sketches here and there, but whenever summer or Christmas breaks hit, I'd just do nothing but sit in front of my computer, open Pinterest, and draw whatever catches my eye. After all of that being said, what gives? Why do I still consider myself to be bad at art? And why can't I still draw what I want to make? I want to point out some mistakes I made that caused me to be hard stuck at art. The first and most crucial mistake I did has something to do with how I think, which is the mindset. Okay, let me tell you a story. I have a brother who is very gifted with talent. My mother would always tell me the story over and over again that my brother picked up a pencil as early as 2 years old and was able to draw his toy helicopter very accurately. It amazed her. Drawing has always been an innate ability of his. He was capable of adapting to any art style, whether it may be leaning to realism or a more stylized approach. As of today, he found out his preferred art style and wants to perfect it to the best that he can. He told me that it was inspired by Western comics because he finds it more appealing than anime. With all that said, where am I going with this? Throughout all those years of watching my brother create, hearing stories from my mother, and being compared by distant relatives, remember when I said that I started taking art seriously in 2023? Well, I wanted to draw too when I was a kid because it was fun to create. However, with everything that's happened, I started to believe that being good at drawing has something to do with genetics, and those who try to learn it must have at least some kind of talent or must have it naturally in order to develop it even further. You can't just start from scratch because you would just be wasting your time trying to pursue this skill. And that's how I viewed art until 2024. I didn't excel in anything. I suck at any sport, I struggle to get average grades in academics, and I have no ability when it comes to being creative. The mindset that being good at something is related to talent really affected with the way I tried to learn the skill. Oftentimes I would just say that I'm not good at this, so I can't do it yet, or I'll never really achieve this level of mastery. This hindered my growth because it forces me to stay within my comfort zone. The fear of failure is what prevents any artists from doing anything. Technically, trying to do something and failing isn't really failure as long as you recognize your mistakes and learn from it. You only truly fail when you quit. This sounds generic, I know, but somehow a lot of people, including me, overlook this point too much. The most common thing that all art educators and YouTubers insist is learning the art fundamentals, the building blocks of art, if you will. They all have this outline and list of what you should learn first. You have stuff like lines, shapes, perspective, anatomy, value, color theory, composition, all that jazz and whatnot. The next mistake I did was being too theoretical. When I started drawing, I was already thinking of what learning content should I take in order to be better. I was more focused on trying to absorb learning materials than actually practicing to draw. This has resulted me in drawing less and less, and I would just find myself watching Proco videos for hours without actually drawing. All that time wasted, which should have just been spent more on practicing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch those types of videos. They're helpful, they're educational. But drawing isn't fully a theoretical process. It's practical. You should always have some sort of application to what you have learned. Which leads me to my next topic. I lacked the process of applying what I learned to my drawings. As an example, when I was practicing gestures of the human figure, I do practice sessions where I task myself to draw 10 gestures in a limited amount of time. And whenever I actually want to draw an actual figure, I'm not applying what I've practiced to the piece I'm making. I just find myself copying contour from a reference. You know that feeling of studying for an exam where you review everything you've been taught in a span of a week or two, only for you to forget it again a month later and retain about only 5% of the information you tried to remember? This is the feeling I get when I was learning the fundamentals. And this is because I'm not applying what I learned to my actual creations or drawings. But eventually, I got through it. I had a somewhat decent schedule in college in my second semester, with having more than 4 hours of vacant time. I dedicated all that free time in drawing. I'd also draw on my graphics tablet when I got home. I was pushing myself to draw more than what I initially intended, because it's motivation. I was starting out, and gained a decent amount of fundamentals. I realized that I started to struggle more and more when I move on to another art fundamental I want to learn, because I'd fear I'd forget everything I learned and practiced previously. This has led me to my next problem. My final mistake, I would say, is heavily connected to my previous one. It's more of a continuation, actually. I said that I was more reliant on theories, right? Well, that's the thing. All I ever did were studies. Not only am I drawing less and procrastinating, but whenever I draw, it's all just studies. I never had a finished piece in a span of a year of me drawing. Again, they're just studies. And whenever I do actually draw, I'm just copying something out of Pinterest with the final result that's less accurate and is not in proportion. I succumbed to the thought that I'm just doing something over and over again. Like, it was insanity. I never really got to see the full results of my dedication and practice, and it took me quite some time to realize that the difference of learning the skill when compared to something like video games or anything that offers you instant gratification, results just don't show out of the blue because you understood some learning art tip and decided to try it out. I was already 7 months in the grind and I was struggling on two things. The first one is that I didn't have a clear structure of what and how I should take the next step of the art fundamental. I was all over the place. I was learning a little bit of everything because I believe that if I know just a percentage of every art fundamental, then maybe I will be able to draw decent art pieces. This has led me to get the shiny object syndrome, and guess where that got me? Absolutely nowhere. The second problem would be is that I didn't know how to exactly measure my progress. Those two problems synergized. I mean, think about it. How are you able to measure your progress if you're trying to do everything at once? Even if you focus on one thing, it would still take time to show the consistent results indicating your mastery of a specific art fundamental. Because of this, I was burned out, and I didn't want to touch anything that's related to drawing or art. Plus, I was in the middle of our capstone project in college, so I wanted to focus more of my attention to that. I never drew for a majority of 2024. I can't say that I experienced something like depression, and I don't want to self-diagnose myself, but I was really down during that time. It was at November 2024 and we finished our capstone project and successfully defended it. There was nothing else to do. I was basically done with my third academic year and just waiting for the next Christmas break. But this time, I didn't know if I wanted to grind art again because the spark was gone and I didn't even made it that far. I was thinking that maybe art wasn't really for me. Sure, some inspirations came in from here and there, like the season 2 of Arcane, which made me do scribbles and doodles of Jinx, but I found a gem, a source of motivation, an anime film that was released in the early 2000s, and that film was Redline.
Someone's having doubts, huh? Hell, I'm just trying to keep this thing interesting. You can't write me off like that. You're just a voice, pal. You don't know a damn thing about racing!
Redline is a futuristic racing film released in 2009, and it was a film directed by Takeshi Koike. And calling the film stylized would be an understatement. It was beautiful. The perspective and proportions were really pushed to the extreme, and the type of animation it wanted to portray was revolving around one word: velocity. It was unique. The creativity around the film was so captivating to me that it made me watch the film for more than 5 times now. However, Redline's beauty isn't what motivated me back into drawing. It was the story behind it. When I was researching stuff around Redline like, is there a sequel to this movie? Or how much did Redline make in box office? I came across a post saying that Redline took 7 years to make. And not only this, but it took them over 100,000 hand-drawn frames to complete. But despite its creativity and uniqueness in the film industry, Redline fell short of making back the money they initially invested, considering it a failure. Notice how I put quotation marks in the word failure. What I'm trying to say here is the backstory of creating Redline is similar to what every single one of us is currently struggling at when trying to become better at something. I can't explain it thoroughly, but I think Genji Kamogawa said it best from Hajime no Ippo. He said that not everyone who works hard is rewarded, but all those who have succeeded have worked hard. So that made me realize, why did I even give up so easily? What made me think of failing already even before starting anything? Because I realized that throughout all this time, I was trying to expect an external reward for my dedication in learning art. Like how competitive video games award you with a rank system for successfully winning. Art has no ranking system. It doesn't determine whether you're a success or a failure. It's a mountain where you will never see its summit. Unlike Redline, there is no finish line to this pursuit. And that's why I think that Redline wasn't a failure. The only downside is that it didn't make enough money for a potential sequel. So this really pushed me to change my way of thinking and made me go back at art. So here I am, starting over again. And this time, I built a structure of what I should learn first. I took Mark Benet's skill tree from his video, learned to draw from level 0 to 100, and I enrolled myself in an online art class by Brent Eviston, which is the art and science of drawing, because I think that having a mentor would really reduce the time of any beginner needs to learn how to draw, because you're not guessing on what's the next step. You should have someone to guide you, someone who's experienced and has been through the grind you're currently taking. Finally, I know that this has been said by a lot of art influencers now, but I just want to remind you that don't ever forget why you started learning art in the first place. It's because you want to create something and have fun while doing it. Draw for yourself. Even if you want this as a career, you'd be pressuring yourself if you think that you should draw for the sake of being better. It starts to become a chore and you'd burn out like me. Furthermore, if you're someone who browses social media and sees stuff like what they've accomplished and immense growth in a span of a year or two, don't ever compare yourself to them, because they only show the results, not what they've been through. There's only one person you should always compare yourself to, and that would be your past self. This video is proof that there are other people out there struggling and going through the same things you do, making the same mistakes, burning out. You're not alone in this. And maybe they haven't seen their red line yet, so just take it easy, relax. It ain't a race. Draw what you want. Make it at your own pace. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you want to subscribe, feel free to do so. I can't promise any future videos, but thank you for listening.